Good morning all, to those in the room and those hopefully online at home. Welcome to the panel discussion on accreditation, building trust and confidence in age assurance technologies. I'm your moderator, Delmy Stevenson. I work for BSI, a lead standards development manager there. A lot of my role is about facilitating the committees there.
Just to let you know, the system shows Deepak being on this panel. He's actually on the next one, so there's an error on the system. So
okay.
These are your panel members.
Great, I was a little bit worried there, but we were just going to roll with it. Where we are. So I deal with committees, UK experts. A lot of that has been, for this summit, to do with age assurance standards. But it's been very interesting to pick up the discussions that have been going on. So why are we here this morning? How do we build trust and confidence, especially as age assurance tackles certain sectors that suggest it doesn't work or is too intrusive for privacy? How do we put in place conformity assessment, quality, privacy, security controls to enable a functioning market for these solutions? We have four distinguished experts. I'm going to ask them some illuminating, previously it was tough questions, illuminating questions. However, at the end of this, we do have time for some questions and answers, so please get yourself ready for those. Rather than me introducing my distinguished guests, I would like them to say a little something about themselves, and also perhaps something that they've enjoyed this week. Was it a moment, a panel that they enjoyed, a presentation? So just to put you on the spot. So should we go this way first then, perhaps?
Thank you. My name is Deepak Tiwari. I'm the founder and CEO of a Swiss company called Privately. We develop online safety as well as online age assurance solutions, particularly age estimation systems using multimodal signals, facial age estimation, of course, but voice, and all the surrounding tech around that. In order to build learning and new generation age estimation systems. So on the subject of what I enjoyed this week, if I can already venture that, actually it was meeting the number of people I have met in this industry, so many more insights and such an addition to my own understanding of how this industry has been moving. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deepak. Over to you, Obi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Obi Udano. I work as Senior Business Development Manager for Age Check Certification Scheme. And as you know, what we do is that we test age verification systems and ID verification systems to make sure that they work. We are happy to have met all our clients finally physically since they came over to this summit. And really what I found interesting is really listening to their challenges, what they've done, and also the confidence that our certifications have provided for them when they in the marketplace. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, Patrick Grother. I work at a US government lab called NIST, which does measurement, particularly in IT and biometrics and age verification or age estimation technologies, core underlying technologies. Everything we do is public and published pretty much, and we are focused on sort of helping the commercial community and the end user community in sort of enhancing capability over maybe an extended time period, but yeah, that's kind of what we do. What did I enjoy in Manchester? It's for my first time here. I grew up in England, but I haven't been to Manchester ever. So it's quite good to be here. It was very useful and illuminating to hear about the multitude of use cases and sort of operational contexts for the use of this technology, various things that you can do and want to do. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Alistair Hunter. I'm from the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, UCAS. We are the sole national accreditation body for the UK, but work within a global framework for quality assurance. And in terms of this week, what I've enjoyed, we're in our very early stages of looking at age assurance as a new area of accreditation. And I think what has struck me the most this week is the level of collaboration and openness and willingness to learn. It's been a really a very vibrant and thought-provoking summit. I've really enjoyed it. If there's just not enough time to do every session, it's been really good. Thank you.
Excellent. And so let's begin with question one. So this is for everyone here. How can accreditation, conformity assessment, testing, and certification processes contribute to building trust amongst stakeholders in the effectiveness, privacy, and security of age assurance solutions for online platforms? Who wants to take that one first?
I can rely on my own experience. We started off about 2-3 years back starting to develop age assurance systems. And the obvious question that was asked each time was, how accurate is it? How do you measure it? Are you really private? Because our claim to fame was that we do everything on device, but that was our claim, right? So not necessarily something everyone would have believed. So we always got these questions, and we had, initially we had, each time we had to prove to someone, well, this is how we tested it, but there was and there were so many other solutions in the market. There was not a sufficient information from a third party to substantiate what we were saying. And then the fact that we went through the accreditation, UCAS accreditation, we went through a GDPR check, and it kind of snowballed, because that's how the ICO took notice that, okay, so this is a GDPR compliant solution on device. They did an audit on us. So it kind of snowballed, and a lot of the engagement that we got was in the back of this kind of accreditation, because then I don't have to prove to everybody that each time that the system works, or that it is whatever that might be. So I think that is a huge merit in my personal experience, and the value that accreditation has brought to us.
Yeah, so I would say these processes, all of them, accreditation, certification, conformity assessments, they're meant to instill confidence in these solutions, and also foster, make sure that people are that confidence about it, especially the stakeholders. For example, the conformity assessments verifies adherence to specified criteria. Certification is basically an official endorsement of that solution, which gives confidence, as Deepak said, from an independent third party who themselves have been accredited by UCAS. So that helps, obviously, when you're speaking to market. And testing also validates the effectiveness of that solution. So I think all these things, when it comes to instilling confidence from an efficacy standpoint, from a privacy protection standpoint, from a security features standpoint, it's just about building confidence for that solution.
Let's go first. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think accreditation brings that third-party confidence, independence, and credibility to the work that's being done. The toolbox that's used for accreditation, the 17,000 series of standards, is broad, and a big part of our presence here this week is to understand where else accreditation is needed by the industry. It's not for us to decide. We respond to the needs of the market. We don't create them in that sense, but to try and understand the breadth and depth of this ecosystem, the age assurance ecosystem, and where the different tools that we have, the conformity assessment activities, include testing and certification that's been mentioned already, but there's inspection, and verification and validation, which may or may not have a role in supporting the aspirations of the industry to deliver confidence to us as consumers at the end of the day and the users of the services. So I think it's a strong role.
Yeah, I second a lot of these comments. To me, it's about risk retirement, mitigating risk. If you can standardize tests, standardize procedures, standardize reporting, standardize vocabulary, then a sort of global community can interpret what the products do, how well they perform, and sort of reason about what to do, in what circumstances it's going to work. So it's about transparency. I look back to the presentation attack detection work that was done in biometrics, which is relevant to age assurance. Is somebody doing something subversive in front of a camera? Cosmetics, face masks, iPads, all this stuff. There was a big effort, 2011, 2012, 2013, to standardize metrics for that and vocabulary for that. So what are we going to call it? And the term presentation attack detection came out of that, of community of people meeting in a standards committee that came up with that. And it was fully adopted across the industry within just a few years. And the common metrics for that are even used in the academic world, who often don't pay attention to standards at all. So, So I think that the contribution is about allowing people to interpret all the test work, certification work that gets done, and uniformly and intelligently.
So my question on the back of that is, so I'm picking up, it usually goes smoothly. Have there been cases where it doesn't go smoothly, and what have been the pain points there for you and your organizations?
Oftentimes when the technology is absolutely like bleeding new, so for example, like we've developed a voice-based age estimation, and there were no precedents for someone who's developed a testing mechanism or what could be an accreditation mechanism. So when something absolutely new comes onto the field, obviously those are the places where you find rightfully so, the challenges around developing a new way to accredit. And we took some time together. We worked together with the accreditation agencies. They came out with the procedures and testing. They found a way in which they could test it reliably for younger people, older people, and in the end they got to a place where they could meaningfully say that this is tested to a certain level of accuracy with a certain demographic and etc. But whenever the point I'm trying to make is, as new technologies come in, you will have this kind of, the accreditation has to keep pace with something which has not been done before. For example, we also do multimodal. If you combine face and voice, is there a check on how much improvement one can do over the others? Is it comparable to other systems? And so on and so forth. So technology, I think the evolution of technology presents a continuous challenge to the accreditation industry.
Yeah, and I'll say from the point of view of a certification scheme that's actually doing the testing, we obviously do this test to standards, so we can't compromise on those standards, and we understand when clients come with the expectation. Some of these products are already in the market working, and they expect that they would pass some of these tests, and unfortunately sometimes we have to be the bearers of bad news. But we try to be as adaptable and flexible as Deepak said. We would try to provide them with all the necessary assets and resources without compromising on the standards. So I would say that it's about helping the clients to achieve their objectives as they go through this testing and certification process.
I don't have much to add. The question was about pitfalls of things that don't happen. Speed is, I think, important. We want to do tests that are sort of agile and timely to essentially marry testing schedules with development schedules. So if algorithms are updated on a 3-monthly basis, then we should be testing on something, proportionate to that. And if we can't do that, then that's something that's going to not be very valuable.
No, I'd agree. I think as the point that's been raised about the speed, the evolution of technology is a very real challenge, and it's one that we're here this week to try to face up and take on board. And my role in UCAS has been created specifically to look at the digital domain and the stresses that it's putting on what was once more established and traditional, slower, easy, not easy, but an accreditation process that was well established. The challenge we have today is about making sure that we can respond quickly to new technological developments, so there is assurance quickly while it's on the market, and not 4 or 5 generations of improvements have taken place before it's approved. So we've got to keep pace with that, and that's something that's been recognised in the UK. The National Cyber Centre have been developing a principle-based assurance model that looks quite promising. Starts off with principles and works back from that to come up with an assurance framework and evaluates against that. So we're looking at that at the moment. But it's a constant challenge. It's a good challenge. We welcome it, but it will be testing us for years to come, I think. And it's only going to get more. It's only going to get faster, isn't it, as new products come on the market.
Excellent. Okay, moving on to the next question. So what criteria should be considered when accrediting and certifying age assurance solutions to ensure they meet industry standards for privacy protection and security, and how can these criteria be effectively communicated to consumers? And sorry, that was for you, Deepak.
Oh, sorry.
I should have.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I particularly have a lot to say on that, but I'll keep it short. So essentially, the big problem I see, and one of the reasons I believe that the age assurance market has been stymied till now, is the concern among the average user that this is a facial recognition system, it's a surveillance system, it's a mass profiling system, and this is the common understanding of a lot of people, and particularly in the US, as we've seen with the FTC. Now, there, as an industry, as accreditation bodies, perhaps this is where we could focus our attention to make sure that we use maybe a different verb. Maybe the terminology we use need to be a little bit different to communicate. Of course, it has to be backed up by what we are actually doing, because I earnestly believe that all age assurance systems are not the same. There are some which are collecting data. There are others which are privacy preserving, and they should be called as such. So we have to make a distinction. It's almost like a privacy, very much like you have a score on the performance. There also has to be a score on the privacy. So this is, and if it is completely on device or on browser, it should be mentioned as such, as something giving more confidence to the end user. And then overall, there has to be a different terminology that we use, differentiating, for example, facial recognition from facial age estimation, because this is creating so much confusion. Even among the regulators. I mean, I was speaking with a regulator. At the end, they said, but it is all facial recognition. So if at the regulator level, we have this level of confusion, I'm thinking there's a lot of education needed in the industry. Sorry, long story short.
Yeah, I'll pick up that point. I think that's very true. I think there is, with any new area, and this is, a sector in its infancy, there's going to be a reliance on us to educate and inform and help bring regulators along, because regulation moves slower. And we need to be clear on where assurance is required and what that looks like. We have to be very clear on the definition of technology, as you say, so that it's so that we use it consistently. If we all use it consistently, others will pick up and adopt it.
This point that Deepak made about people conflating face recognition with face age verification. 2017, MIT put out a report called Gender Shades, which was about bias in algorithms that look at a photo and say, is it a male or a female? And that was reported very, very, very widely about bias in face recognition, meaning systems that identify you in public spaces. And this caused quite a bit of angst in the face recognition world, that a study about gender estimation had been used to torpedo face recognition. This is an ongoing hazard, and it won't go away unless we're very clear about what algorithms do and what they certainly don't do about storing data in clouds and persistent data and privacy violations. So that's, I think, everybody who wants to see this technology go forward for all the good purposes that it can do will need to keep pushing back on, keep delineating correctly.
And just in part of that question was, I think there's a role of standards, and standards can be, it can take quite a long time to develop a standard, as we're experiencing with the age assurance standards. It's a 3-year process. How has that been in your work, in your line of work? Does that impact the technology aspects of it, delivering to the end consumer?
I think to an extent, yes. I mean, if there were more standards, if there was more clarity, there's also I think there's a confusion about what needs to be done in different geographies. For example, you see, if we're saying that there's going to be a completely different standard in France, for example, or in Spain and in Asia, so that obviously slows down the industry. I think there's a lack of a common language, a common understanding of what a privacy-preserving age assurance system looks like. I think that's the nub of it, right? And we all have our interpretations, but if we could, as an industry, as accreditation bodies, get behind that single definition. I'm thinking of the equivalent of the PAD, like you said. So something absolutely simple for everyone to understand, and something which everyone gets behind. Then I think it will benefit and we will not have the same problem about it being slow and taking years to move and to be accepted. I think that's the way to go about it.
Okay. So this is for you, Patrick. How do conformity assessment processes help verify the reliability and accuracy of age verification technologies? And what role do independent testing and certification bodies play in assuming the integrity of these solutions?
So it's tempting to think of testing as being a sort of a monolithic thing, that you just do one kind of test and you're done. My lab does tests of core underlying technology, prototype algorithms that we run without humans standing in front of cameras, without humans standing in front of payment terminals, without children engaging with web browsers. We evaluate at the very sort of bottom tier, what you would call a technology evaluation. I think it's worthwhile in many, many cases to also run tests at the other end on operational systems. So if you've got a system fielded, maybe a Facebook system or a social media system or maybe a supermarket system, to put in the hooks and instrument that system so that you can do tests. In the middle of this spectrum of testing, you can do things, what the biometrics community calls scenario testing, whereby you mimic this. You bring people into a lab, you have them walk and do things, and you observe what happens. And can they engage with whatever the system looks like? All of those things are useful, and I think the biometrics recognition testing is quite a bit more mature than probably age verification testing is. Although age verification testing, I think, is in large part simpler. But accreditation of labs to do those kinds of tests correctly, I think is valuable, because if biometric testing is any predictor, there's a lot of ways to do tests that are not very good, either statistically or terminologically or methodologically or test design. You can get things wrong, and standards will help, lab accreditation will help. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So for us, because we also operate, we also provide independent testing, and unlike what NIST do, we focus on functional testing. So we're not looking at the algorithms. What we're trying to provide to the customer is as real as it gets. What does the system work? Really, that's what we're saying. It's based on what you've said, based on what your policies. Does that system work if it's put in a real environment as is? So we try to, as I said, simulate real life scenarios and also provide them with the test assets that they might not have when they're doing their internal testing, so that we can then see how the system behaves and provide them with feedback for it, so that they can, it gives them an avenue for continuous improvement of that technology.
An example of that that we did recently with ACCS is at the request of the client. They wanted like the end-to-end testing within a store. So they identified specific stores with a certain design where lighting was of a certain kind. So mimicking exact real life situations, and had real clients come in and saw how the system was behaving. So yes, I can attest that was very valuable from the end client to understand, okay, this is being tested out now in real stores over a month, and that's how it looks like. So.
A lot of agreement there, and a lot of nod heading. Okay, so this is for Patrick. How do conformity assessment processes help verify the reliability and accuracy of age verification technologies? And what role do independent testing certification bodies play in assuring the integrity of these solutions?
I don't know, more tests, more visibility. Oh yeah, sorry. Conducting tests, running visibility, showing that the technology has got a readiness level. The defense people in the United States love to talk about technology readiness levels. And once you've got systems that are engineered well, employing underlying algorithms and cameras that are sort of fit for purpose, then you can talk about technology being ready. And it's all about demonstration of that, and knowing when it's going to work. So one of the use cases that I heard about this week is in letting people into nightclubs. And I'm a bit worried that if you're going to stand in an alley in Manchester and do age assurance via a camera looking at somebody's face, that may not be the best way to do it, because illumination is going to be, nightclubs are not day clubs, they're nightclubs, and so you might want to do it a different way, using different set of technologies. Maybe voice would be the right way to go. I don't know, but yeah, testing retires risk. I'll just stick to my main talking point here. That was a question for me, so I handed the microphone.
But if you do want to jump in, but yeah.
Yeah, no, just because, but this is where, events like this and bringing the community together to agree standards has a huge role to play in here, and by agreeing what a baseline is, and ensuring consistent, valid outcomes. And I think we've been talking about that in some of the sessions today. This week has been about valid outcomes. That can be underpinned by third-party testing and certification, accreditation. So the system, the framework is there. It's the technical detail which will come through standardization.
I was just wondering, just a follow on from that. Is the American context different from here in the UK? It seems that we're kind of getting things right, or is that just a wrong assertion?
I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a policy person, and so all of this is quite evolving quite quickly. The US is hung up on alcohol in a big way, and so they have the age 21, which is different than the age 18. But it tends to get very heavily enforced. So I think there's an appetite for systems and legislation and policy and regulation in this area. But ask me next year. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so for Alistair, question for you, but please feel free to jump in. Can standardized accreditation and certification frameworks help alleviate concerns about the privacy implications of age verification processes? And how can these frameworks adapt to evolving privacy regulations and consumer expectations? Oh, that was a
That's a
mouthful.
big question.
Oh God.
Can it? Yes, I mean it can, and it does at the moment. There are schemes already for assuring privacy. We've got 27701, which is being discussed this week as well. In terms of, I really think it's about making sure that we're providing, the industry are providing the right assurance at the right place, and we need to know what right looks like. Where are the concerns, and make sure that we gear the system up to assure those. Standardisation underpins what we do as a national accreditation body, and I think the work that's been going on and the conversations that have been had this week, facilitate that process. But it's fast, it's fast moving. It's new. But yes, I think accreditation and accredited conformity assessment activities, whatever they are, to provide the level of assurance required, can provide that confidence, absolutely, and has done in many other areas in the past. It's just this one's new, so we're finding our way, I think, as an industry. But doesn't feel like a very good answer, actually. I think it was just too many moving parts, but
I had the same feeling about that.
Does anyone want to jump in?
I'll just add that these framework provide a structured approach for these solutions to address their privacy concerns. And really, it's about them establishing clear guidelines and best practices for how these solutions can, comply to privacy regulations. So, I would say that yes, that's really what they're there for, to provide that approach for the age verification solution providers to comply with privacy regulation.
No, you don't want to answer? Okay. He's jumping in. Well, okay. So Patrick, another one for you. I'm targeting you today. So what steps can industry stakeholders take to ensure transparency and accountability in the accreditation and certification of age assurance solutions? So fostering confidence among consumers, regulators, and relying parties.
So what steps can stakeholders take?
Yep.
So who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are what? End users, right? The people, the regulators, the parents, the commercial deployers who have children in their spaces, or beverage associations who are trying to help their members. You've got a whole lot of stakeholders, and they would probably need to be thinking about what standards to cite, what accreditations to require, what tests to procure or to specify or to reference. this is where openness of test results, of certificates, of certifications, and sort of uniform interpretability of what has been tested and done, and traceability of technologies back to what was tested. This will be useful if stakeholders can write those procurements or those specifications in a coherent, sort of interpretable and meetable fashion, so the industry knows exactly what is wanted. So, yeah.
Okay. Anyone?
I have one comment. So thanks to Patrick's report that he mentioned yesterday, it also shines a light to the industry. For example, what's very clear as age assurance and age estimation providers, we have been pointed out to the fact that the systems have, all current systems have some level of bias, which needs to be, we need to tackle that. Yeah. But when such a report comes out and when it is made public and transparent, it also helps the industry to think of solutions. So this morning, I was already discussing it, but we were already thinking how in the long term are we going to make sure that systems are not biased as an industry. Of course, as a company, we will do that, but also what are the solutions? So I think it fosters this kind of thinking that because I'm very sure in the next 3, 4, 5 years, you will have systems where most of the biases are covered. This is a march of technology that we will find, but it is this kind of avenues, this kind of transparency, which makes the industry sit back and think, well, we have a problem and we need to address that problem. And so then we will look for solutions. So it's also, that has it's a different take on the same question, but I think it's very valuable to the industry at large, these kind of accreditation and public certification or statement about the state of the technology, so to say.
Okay, all right. So Obi, I've got you circled in for this question. However, feel free to jump in for this one. So, who has got this right? Have any countries around the world yet nailed the ecosystem for age assurance certification and accreditation of the bodies involved?
So I'll say several countries have made significant strides in this respect. But I would say that the UK is one of the leading examples, especially the work that they've done in the age assurance bit, for example, and being spearheaded by the ICO, making sure issues around GDPR compliance. We did a piece of work for them in terms of measurement of age estimation technologies. So they're really pushing the envelope. There are other countries like Australia, Canada, Singapore that have also implemented some stringent frameworks for age assurance systems. I would say that there's no perfect ecosystem, but these nations serve as exemplary models for what needs to be done. The issue here is the countries need to not work in silos. It's important, as Deepak said, that they have some sort of unified standard or system that the providers, because most of these providers are global companies that want to work across boards. So it's important that we begin to talk to one another so that these standards have some sort of global scope in how they approach this. So I'll say that's my answer.
Anyone else want to jump in there? Who do you think's got it wrong? Is there any obvious? Is there any other countries that you think have just no? We should look towards there.
I'll say for the developing countries, they're leading and they ought to lead. But I don't know if anyone has gotten it wrong. I think wrong would be not the right word for it. Maybe they need to do some more work on it, on what how they've approached it. But because we're UK based and we see what they're doing, just from an age assurance industry, that was one of the reasons why Our CEO really emphasizes the need to, he sees it as a growing sector because the UK is very serious in pushing all the frameworks and everything, the technology about age assurance. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's any country that has gotten it wrong. Some countries aren't even looking at it at all. And so for these countries to have something in place says that they're walking in the right direction.
I wonder if, given the youth of this, or the infancy of this industry, if we've had time really to get it right or wrong. It's I think there's the writing. I feel coming from the national accreditation body for the UK that we're having the right conversations. You know, the right people are here this week to try. There's a will to get this right and to agree what right looks like, and if we can encapsulate that in technical standards that ensure comparability and repeatability, as Patrick mentioned earlier on, I think we're onto a good thing. I think that that's a good way. It's a proven way to do it. But I think it's quite. I don't feel we've had the time. We've had lots of good and meaningful, often theoretical conversations about some of the challenges that our accredited organisations are having to deal with, and how they see that being addressed in the paths forward. And we're here this week to make sure that we keep pace with that, and that the ecosystem is supported where it can be by accredited conformity assessment. But it's very early. I do feel we are. It's a good thing, but it's very. I don't want to say it's immature because I don't think it is. I think there's an awful lot of huge strides technologically have been made and continue to be made, but we've got a bit of catching up to do, and that's what we're here to try to achieve. The conversation starts now, and will continue, I hope.
I love that answer. Okay, so my questions are finished. Now it's out to you. Do you have any burning questions? Oh, here you go. Here's the microphone.
What do you think is the required frequency of testing? So to prevent this from becoming a tick box exercise that you get an accreditation once per year, and to instill confidence from the deployers and the end users that the technology that they're implementing hasn't changed or had any regressions in there, do you have to accredit every iteration of your algorithm and present that prior to any deployments in real world situations?
So for us at ACC, we recommend that you test when you've had a significant upgrade to the system. If you've just done normal updates, we don't necessarily need to retest it from an accreditation standpoint. But if you've really done some significant integrations or iterations, then we would need to test it because the version would have changed. And that's why we also have an annual surveillance audit, which is almost like a monitoring mechanism for the certification. And so we would look at how you develop the system and then try to pair it with that, surveillance audit. So we see that if it's a new system, clients usually come, say, every 3-4 months for testing, because that's how long it takes them to develop it while it's going through its initial stages. So that was.
I think it's probably worth just mentioning. We need to be, and this point was raised earlier on, we need to be careful about the language that we use. Accreditation is something that we do and we provide to give confidence in organisations who are testing and certifying and inspecting. Depending on these certification, inspection and testing tools, are applied in different ways depending on the assurance that's needed. If it's testing that we're talking about specifically under 17025, then any significant change in the product probably needs, it prompts a review of some sort, as Patrick mentioned about risk, sort of risk-based analysis. Now, in some sectors that can be regulated. It's not here yet because it's too new. When we talk about certification, which that's an ongoing process that gives confidence in the product over time. And then there will be surveillance activity periodically to ensure that what's been assured previously and attested to remains valid. And again, that's depending on the scheme. We call it a scheme. The scheme might specify specifically how that's to be done and how it's to be treated. But yeah, sorry, I thought somebody was going to say something. Anybody else?
I'd just say, you know, AI is marching along. The capability presumably will go up, and so we'd see performance error rates would come down, and as error rates come down, you can probably get away with testing a bit less frequently, as long as the range of applications stays about the same. If at some point in the future you want to do age estimation of people walking through a concourse at Heathrow Airport, then that might require a new set of tests with new cameras, new lighting systems, and all that stuff. But for those cooperative applications that have been talked about this week, selfies, online, supermarkets, you could see that in 5 years' time, you would have a mature technology. And once it's built and is good, then you probably don't need to keep on testing at the same kind of cadence that you would want to do right now. It's just an assumption, but yeah.
There's just one thing that I think will come on as an intermediate on the horizon, and that is the generative AI attacks. And that, whether we like it or not, there will be some disruption on existing systems, which means to say that systems will have to build something new in order to prevent those attacks. And that would be, I would say, that would be like in the medium to near term, those changes. But like beyond that, unless there are other threats which evolve, which might require, you know, frequent upgrade or testing or change in the technology, I do believe that there will be a stability. And that, for example, the regression that you talked about, I would not significantly see it becoming a more standard technology and not being regressed over time. It's more off the shelf, very standard.
Just for those online, are there any questions that you want to submit? You're almost free. Okay, all right, that's fine. So if no one else has any questions, I think I'd just like to thank our experts for their time and contribution. I certainly learned a lot. I have a lot to digest. I'm very new to this space. So up next, I've got to do this. So there's lunch, and afterwards back in this room, there's a panel looking at inward investment and capital fund raising for the age assurance sector. Or you could head over to Win for a workshop hosted by Lego about delivering age-appropriate experiences online for children. So there you go. And just a quick round of applause, certainly for myself.